Welcome to the i5 channel. I'm here with my co-host Jim,
Hello.
and it's quite frankly been a very tragic week. We are going to be covering the Israeli-Palestinian situation. However, this video is going to be about the Greek floods. The video about the Israeli-Palestinian situation will be coming out later. We are going to be covering that topic. But today, we're going to be covering the Greek floods because, quite frankly, we've not seen a lot about that in the media currently.
Yeah, not only that, but it sort of has a bigger impact to Europe's economy in general, as weird as this may sound. But I will try to explain that a bit later as we go through.
Sure. My understanding is the main area that's been hit is Thessaly, if that's how you pronounce it.
Yes, Thessaly, the Thessalic Valley, if I translate this correctly. This happened during September. Basically, a big storm hit, and that storm was one of the big ones that have a name.
Isn't
Yeah,
it Storm
yeah,
Daniels?
Storm Daniel, that's the one. And yeah, it it rained quite a lot. That storm destroyed the houses. And just to put it into perspective, the amount of water that fell during these days is equal to the amount of water that normally falls in a period of 2 years, I think. So, yeah, I'm gonna go into a bit of a history as well, because in that area there was a big lake that was about 180 kilometers squared. So, back in ancient Greece, they even had anti-flood mechanisms on that lake, because underneath that lake it's like rock. So and there's no way to, well, there's no way, it's very, very difficult to pretty much absorb any overflowing waters in case of flooding. So in ancient Greece, they had anti-flood mechanisms, and even the Persians during the invasions tried to target these mechanisms for that reason. Now, fast forward into modern history, 1962, the government that was then in power, the political party that was then in power, decided to artificially drain the lake, because they thought all the underneath floor would be quite fertile for, like, growing up vegetables. So they decided to drain the lake to give the land to the farmers and have an increase in production that way. But they miscalculated because the land wasn't fertile. So the fertility of the land depends on the type of the soil.
Yeah.
And the soil itself plays so much of a big role that it could be that where you stand, the land is perfect, and 3 steps to your right, the land is no good. And all that has to do with the type of the soil. This is also important, which I'm gonna get to later on as like the aftermath of the floods. And anyways, so they artificially drained the lake, and the soil wasn't good, but at the same time, the farmers had less water supply, because a lot of farmers were also using the lake to water their own farms. So after a certain period of time, they decided, look, this is not viable. It causes more problems than it solves. Therefore, they decided to refill the lake, but not to its original size, which was 180 square kilometers, but to 50 of the original 108 kilometers. The reason why I mentioned this is because after this lake was refilled, there were no anti-flood mechanisms whatsoever. In fact, throughout the valley of Thessaly, there were almost no anti-flood infrastructure whatsoever.
I actually have a.
Yeah.
I was just gonna have a stat for that. After Lanos, 250 million euros worth of funding had been allocated for the construction of anti-flood reinforcements. But apparently it wasn't used effectively at all.
Yes, it wasn't used effectively. No, it's not that it wasn't used effectively. It wasn't used, period. And now Europe is kicking off with us for not
Mm.
using the money properly, when in reality we didn't have any control of the money because the people that had in control actually pocket the money.
Mm.
This is the same thing that happened a few years ago when they gave money to Greece in order to digitalize all the paperwork we had. So we, when you're dealing with the Greek public, it would be a less of a pain
Yeah.
because people would have computers to actually use them. But none of that happened for various reasons, which I don't want to get into at the moment. But yeah, that was the brief history of Lake Karla. The reason why I mentioned it is because it rained so much that from 50 square kilometers, which was the original size, it
Mm.
reached almost the original size, which is 180.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, the floods were tremendous. The damage was
Oh,
tremendous.
oh yeah. I've got some stats here, and
We're talking about 720,000 flooded. 720,000 squares of land that got flooded.
yeah, €5 billion estimated on the immediate impact worth of damage.
Yes, because Thessaly is a valley. It has a very very warm and humid weather over the summer. It's like
Mm.
you have mountains on the top and the fields in the middle. So that is good for production of different vegetables. And
Mm.
these floods destroyed pretty much 35% of the fields, animals,
Yeah.
with vegetables, everything.
Oh yeah, and
So
200,000 animals and poultry have been swept away with the torrents.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And as I mentioned, is a valley, so all these waters
Yeah.
that were flooded, they remained there. That's the reason why I said that the you know in the area it's very difficult to have the waters absorb in terms of there being overflown, which was why they had the
Mm.
anti-flood mechanisms. But the
Yeah.
thing is, these waters are now remaining there, and you have all the bodies of people and animals that died that
Oh
pollute
yeah.
the water, and this
Some of
also
them are.
pollutes the water for like house use, like drinking water,
Mm.
which
Some of
makes
them
it
are on roofs
dangerous.
as well.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
loads of rotten carcasses are on people's roofs and they're just rotting.
yeah. And also take into account that all these floods, all this flooding water, it it brought up soil, rumble, and everything. And it's not that it destroyed the farm in the sense that okay, the farm is now flooded. After
Mm.
the water subsides, I will be able to plant vegetables. No, the soil is completely ruined,
Yeah, I can
and
imagine.
there is no indication or prediction on how long this will take to be healed,
Mm.
essentially.
Oh, just a few local examples as well, just to back up what you've said in Vlokos. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's a small village. Homes have been
Mhm.
wrecked, many people displaced and living in tents. I mean, it sounds like a third world country in that respect.
It
Sickness
really
and
is, yeah,
disease,
yeah.
imminent. Locals are saying government aid is well below what is needed. A resident in Lefki, lost a walnut orchard. He's claimed it was worth 1,000 trees. In Palamas, Petropolis Vangelis contends with truckloads of putrefying cotton. Major crop failure is expected. The damage to the crops and infrastructure is obviously going to drive up prices as well.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at. Prices
Oh,
have
sorry.
already started increasing on very basic needs like olives, olive oil, vegetable, even feta, because
Yeah.
this 35% that was lost, you're you're gonna have to import because you're either
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
starve or import it. In both cases, that will drive the prices up on an already suffering economy.
Hmm.
And the other thing is that while the floods were happening and people were in need of like basic stuff like water and food, the government itself had to place an embargo, which is like an upper limit to the price of the water,
Hmm.
because a lot of people were, they could take advantage and just say, "Oh, you
Yeah.
want water? Here's 20 quid for a 50 milliliter bottle."
Profiteering.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing the other reason why the prices will go up is because you know how in England there's like the A1 that connects everything.
Yeah.
So we have in Greece a similar road, and due to the floods, that road was no longer accessible. So pretty much in reality, Greece was cut in half. So all the different transportation and trading routes
Mm.
were cut. So they had to use a way, way longer route, which means more price in gas, more time, and therefore that will cause an overall price increase on every sort of goods
Oh yeah.
in the country that you get from down south and vice versa.
Mm.
Yes, the people very much so rightfully said that there were no anti-flood mechanisms,
Mm.
but at the
There was
same time, we have to be realistic and say that no matter what sort of mechanisms were there, the damage would still occur. Hopefully,
one
it may have been less and it may
oh
have
yeah.
been a lot less victims, but no matter what you had, I don't think anything could have prepared. There was no way to prepare for what happened.
One point that has been raised with the Greek government, I just want to know what you make of it. There weren't enough aircraft, including enough Super Puma helicopters, that were actually available to conduct search and rescue operations. This on its own might seem like it's not the government's fault, but combined with the fact that, Greece spends more than any other EU country on defense, you think there was a bit lacking there.
It's not that it was, well, the end result was lacking, but in reality, it all falls down to chain of command and organization.
Yeah.
Greece is one of the most disorganized countries you can live in. Everything takes
Hmm.
time because someone somewhere decides to scratch his balls rather than doing his job. And
Yeah.
that's the case with every single sector that involves you as a person, as a civilian, as a member of the society. And if this happens on a daily basis, you bet your ass it will also happen in a case of crisis.
Yeah.
The army has been army did get involved unofficially at first, officially afterwards. Like specifically in Volos, the army went out of their way to help, and they also even had civilians stay inside the army base because there was nowhere else to stay. But I want to also mention some very I have no way to describe them, so I'm just going to describe the events themselves. Even in this moment of crisis, the mayors of the cities that got affected, or not all of them, but some mayors, decided to distribute the basic need goods like water, towels, etc., depending on who votes who. So, for example, if you as a civilian went there, he would be like, "Oh no, I will not give you water because you're not voting for me. You did not vote me." And
Should be
this
illegal.
is, yeah, it should be. But not only nothing came of it, but he actually that specific mayor got re-elected. Now, I'm pretty sure voting is anonymous, so I don't know
It should be.
how he's in a position to know who voted who, but in any case, it just shows that in a moment of crisis, corruption prevails.
With the long-term effects, given that a fifth of all of Greece's cotton crops, have been destroyed, and Thessaly
Not a
representing
fifth,
25.
35%.
Oh, it's up now. Oh, damn.
No, it was
Uh,
35%. It's not a fifth.
Unaware that's specifically the cotton crops, not the whole crop production in general.
Oh, you're talking about specifically for the cotton crops.
Yeah, it's just the stat I
Oh,
found, and
oh,
also
yeah. Sorry, I was looking for
Thessaly.
the overall thing.
No, it's fine, and that's my bad. And also the fact that Thessaly as a region represents
Yeah.
25% of Greece's complete agricultural production. For the trading
Yeah.
they do. Do you think this is going to have? I mean, this must be gonna have this has got to have a long-term impact on Greece's economy.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what I sort of try to get into. So you have a
Mm.
field that is fertile.
Yeah.
Because of the flood, the flooded water brings extra soil, destroys your crop, but it also destroys your field. Now, in order to get your field alive again and fertile, basically you will need to bring soil from somewhere. You would need to get specific soil to the thing that you want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And that is after the waters have subsided, after you want us to clean everything out of your field, and after you bring your field into a certain level to the point where you can get the extra soil in to start cropping all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that is assuming you have solved the watering problem, which you
Yeah.
haven't, because you have viruses all over the water because of the dead animals.
Mm.
So in order to reach a point where this whole area is back into 100% production, I think it might even take 10 years. So that means for the next 10 years, you're going to have to import stuff from outside, which, will probably double the prices. At the same time, because Greece is in the center, depending on where it imports stuff from, that will offset the balance of economy. Because Greece is like in the center of Europe, so depending on which country Greece relies upon more for certain stuff, that will offset the economy slightly, which might not sound much, but considering we have now two wars happening on two
Yeah.
different fronts, even the slight change is actually, it plays a difference. I will give you a small example. My dad's a hunter, and he was looking for like shotgun shells for his weapon. They told him they ran out because the supplier of that shop had to send all of the ammunition to Ukraine. And this was in Greece.
Yeah. Imagine.
So you can see stuff like that. It's like a sort of domino effect, and there's like a cause and effect relationship between every single thing and change that occurs, no matter how small or how big. So in this case, because of this destruction, the stuff we were exporting, we can no longer export. The prices in country stuff already increasing, and we will have to import stuff from other countries as well, which will cause a further increase. And this is on the back of any other increase that may occur in energy and any other economic impact because of the wars that are currently happening between Ukraine, Russia, and Israel, Palestine. But yeah, I know this is, as a topic, is a bit more specific to Greece rather than the general world news that we tend to discuss. But this is also a small cog, let's say, to the events that happen in Europe, and I believe it will actually have an effect
Oh yeah.
in the economy of Europe. Maybe not as much as other things, but it will play its role, even if it's small.
It's also, it may not be on the same scale as Israel-Palestine or the Ukraine war, but people's loved ones are people's loved ones. To them it's highly important. Tragically, 15 people have been left dead from this.
Yeah, that we know of, because
That we know of, because there's some missing as well.
there is some missing, and of course you need to understand the government itself is really good at manipulating the media.
Yeah.
And fiddling with the stats.
The
Like
Greek,
it was only recently. This is quite a horrible thing to say as a news, but as a story, but like quite a few months ago, there was a big train accident near that area because two trains went on a head-on collision, because all the money that were supposed to go into the mechanism preventing, like the safety measures preventing that, were not invested there. After these months, they just found recently that there are actually bodies still inside the train rotting. And honestly, I don't know how to feel about that. It's just fucking horrible.
Yeah, it's
Um,
harrowing.
it is. It's like even I had family in Volos, to be honest,
Mm.
and I was worried with the events transpired. But yeah,
Yeah. Just
so that's me. That's all I wanted to say. Really, just a brief introduction. Well, a brief mention rather of the events transpired, and mainly because they're going to have an effect on the economy of Europe, which may affect the you know
just
just cut that out.
no, it's fine. Just one last thing from me. It's only a couple of things. Opposition. Their comments on this. So I'm going to butcher these names. Nikos Androulakis, leader
Yeah,
of the opposition. This is quoting, the responsibility of the government and the local prefecture are very big. It is clear they failed to shield Thessaly from such extreme weather phenomena. And he begins again. The quality of the anti-flood works that have taken place has to be inspected, but officially, it also he's implying the government there, should also apologise for the works that have not happened in recent years. That was his take on it. Efi Akistogolu, I hope I pronounced that correctly, the front runner in this month's race for Syriza leader, after the party's routing at general elections in June, accused the government of, begin quote, throwing long-accepted flood risk management plans in the rubbish. It ignored European Commission warnings about works not carried out. These responsibilities must be taken. Appreciating what you've said before, this is just what they're saying. And lastly, a pro-government newspaper, Cafe Marini. Its
yeah,
editor
Marini,
claimed, yep,
which is the
it's
equivalent of Daily Mail.
it's
And
its
ironically,
edit
Marini means daily.
really
Yeah.
its editor claimed. Okay, so the editor claimed that lightweight politicians have been put in crucial posts in government, and had a headline: "Either we get serious." Insiders are saying the Greek PM will have a cabinet reshuffle expected to happen as the appeals are made in Brussels for emergency funding from the EU. This was about 3 weeks ago. So it looks as though even his allies have turned on him in this event.
They call allies. It's more like how do you call them? Not falcon. What's the animal? One sec.
Vultures.
Yes, it's like vultures. As soon as you show weakness, they fall on him. But really, opposition, they forget that a lot of people in the opposition were actually in the same political party that it is now, because during the years, a lot of people change sides depending on what's better for their political career. And throughout these years, I bet you every single one of them actually pocketed money, the same money that was supposed to be used for either anti-flood mechanisms or fail safes in case two trains end up, you know, going into head-on-head collision.
Yeah.
But when you're in opposition, it's the easiest job in the world, because all you have to do is say no. That's your role. But in reality, they didn't do a better job when they were in power. If anything, I could argue that they did a worse job, but regardless, yeah, it was a shit show. And this whole pretty much illustrated the inability of doing at least one thing right. And it just reinforced the fact that every single sector, every single thing in regards to what we define as civilian, as an active member of society in Greece, just doesn't work in favor of the civilian.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything to say on it, unless you've got something else.
No, that was it.
Okay. And just a reminder to the audience there again, a lot of the photographs which we'll mark, they are exclusive to i5. As I say, Jim had a contact in Greece that got us the actual photographs, so we thank them for that. And we covered this because, quite frankly, it was largely ignored in the mainstream media. So, thank you for listening. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and ring the little bell.
Yep.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.